Senator Scott Wagner was elected to his first term in the state Senate in March of 2014, winning a special election to represent the citizens of the 28th Senatorial District, which represents parts of York County. Born and raised on a farm in York Township, Wagner is a lifelong resident of York County. A graduate of Dallastown Area High School, he started his first small business at age 20 and has since worked and led numerous businesses, helping them to improve their operations and create economic opportunity. Wagner is currently president and owner of York-based Penn Waste Inc. and KBS Trucking in Thomasville, PA. As a small business owner, Wagner supports policies and programs that help create jobs, limit government spending, and ease the tax and regulatory burden on job creators. A strong advocate for government reform, he will work to make state government accessible and accountable to the people he serves. His top priorities as a member of the Senate include bringing fiscal responsibility to state government, controlling property taxes, helping to spur economic growth, and protecting and defending constitutional freedoms. Setting an example for others to follow, Wagner will not accept a government pension or per diems and will work to keep costs down to save Pennsylvania tax dollars. Wagner serves as the chairman of the Senate Intergovernmental Operations Committee, vice chairman of the Aging and Youth Committee, and a member of the Local Government, Transportation, Urban Affairs and Housing, and Veteran Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committees. Wagner is active in the York nonprofit community and has served in organizations promoting entrepreneurship and leadership development. He is a past recipient of the South Central PA Entrepreneur of the Year Award and Distinguished Service Award. And to add a little bit more personal note to this particular introduction, I can't overstate how important that special election was down there, how big of a deal that really was. He went up against the Republican establishment in that election. He went up against not only their power, but their money. He did it as a non-politician himself, and he did it as a write-in and ended up beating two other candidates as a write-in by about a 2-to-1 margin of victory. This is unprecedented. And I say this to bring up 2 points. Number one, the man obviously knows how to get things done. He did this, again, as a non-politician from the outside, up against the party establishment that desperately wanted to keep him out of the Senate. And I say this for a second reason. The second reason is he ran a fantastic campaign, got the word out to the people, his messaging was spot on, and when the people were educated and they knew the issues and they were made aware of the shenanigans in Harrisburg's polling, they overwhelmingly came out in support of Wagner and what he stood for. One other thing I'd like to say, I saw him speak at Lebanon 912 down the road, and one thing that I picked up on that he said, you know, I'm really uncomfortable being called senator. I really don't like it. And I have to say I really admire that, because I've spent lots of times in Harrisburg, and I can tell you there are many, many, many big egos up there that love to be called senator and representative. So not only do I respect that, I'm going to respect that right now as I introduce him. I'd like you to join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Scott Wagner.
Good evening. It's a delight to be here. I'm going to make sure I'm situated. I have notes, and I'm going to try to stick to my notes and not be random like I typically am. But Ron, thank you for the introduction. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Scott Wagner. I'm in the waste business down in New York, and on February 15th, it'll be 30 years. 30 years ago, I started my first waste company at age 20 or 29. I'm 59, so I'm not sometimes a little slow on that. But what happened was I got involved in politics back in 1979. I had an attorney that was doing some real estate transactions. At the time, I owned city properties, rental properties in the city court. And the gentleman's name was Christian Ness. Chris said, Scott, I'm going to run for district attorney. I'd like you to help me with my campaign. So I helped him with his campaign. I think I wrote a check for $100 or $150. Back then, it was a lot of money. And that was sort of my first taste. And over the years, I continued to write a lot of checks, and I'm talking serious checks. And if you go out and Googling, we're talking serious money over a 20-year period. And what I found every year is, the HRCC would come down and visit New York, and all kinds of promises, and this and that, and ask me for 5,000 or 10,000, and I typically wrote the check. And so I just noticed that, I give money, hear the same stuff, it'd be back 2 years later, and it was just over and over. And with my various businesses, I actually am involved in 5 operating businesses. There are 3 waste companies, one in York, one in Northeast Lancaster, one in Fort Wayne, Indiana, another business, a waste business, an industrial engine business in Greenville, South Carolina, which happens to be right to work state, and a trucking company based in western part of York. But I noticed that over the years the regulation just continued to increase. I went to Harrisburg, and 3 years ago I went to Harrisburg with an effort to try to change some of the workers' comp regulations. I met with 4 attorneys at L&I, I met with 4 legislative people. I had my HR director, my workers' comp attorney, very, very good attorney with a large Harrisburg law firm. Nothing got done. So, I'm just tired of, honestly, I'm tired of stupid people. And so what happened last August, I just don't have time for stupidity. And there's an airport down in Easton, Maryland, and I was in that airport about 8 years ago, and there's a picture of John Wayne. John Wayne's holding his gun and standing there with his chaps on it, and underneath in big letters it says, "Life is tough enough. Being stupid makes it tougher." So in this past August, a year ago, our senator Mike Wall announced that he was not going to run, for re-election. And so I've been very active with Pat Toomey's campaign in 2010. I got involved heavily in the judicial campaign, and then we tried to knock off our U.S. congressman. So we were in some campaigns that were hot and heavy, and I hired a communication PR coordinator for our company at Penn Waste, and Amanda Davidson, who is my campaign manager, helped me with these campaigns. So when Senator Wall announced he was not going to run, I sat down and I said, you know what, I'm thinking about this. And I actually went down to see, I have a home on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I went to see Congressman Andy Harris. Now, Andy, I think he's a big guy in Maryland, and so I went to a couple of fundraisers. I called him up one morning, and we're his campaign person, and I went down and had breakfast, and I said, I'm thinking about doing this. And Andy had been in the state Senate of Maryland. He said, no, Scott, if you don't do it, you're going to regret it. And so I walked away, my fiance was with me at the time, so I made the decision to run. And I was geared up for my campaign. I started my campaign in early September. We were geared up for the primary in May. And we had heard rumors that there may be a resignation of Senator Wall, and there might be a special election. So lo and behold, on January 20th, Senator Wall, when it was announced at noon on Monday that he was retiring from the Senate, or resigning from the Senate, he was simultaneously appointed to run the farm show operation, and 2 hours later, the Lieutenant Governor came out and announced the special election. And I'll tell you why this is important, because they tried to catch me off guard. And I'm probably the most competitive guy on the planet. I love to win, and I know how to skin the cat. I'm in the waste business, so I've competed against waste management and public services for 30 years. I've built 2 companies from 0 to large companies. And so what I did is I went down to the county courthouse, and I'll just tell you the story because I think it's important. But I went down to the county courthouse, and I went down the basement to the Bureau of Elections, and I went to see one of their voter machines. And I was thinking about a write-in campaign. And I talked to my elections compliance attorney in Washington, and he said, I would never advise a client or candidate to do a special election. So anyway, I went down and I checked the machine out. I still have photos on my phone, and I wanted to understand how this thing would work. So I went back the next day, and they had actually set the machine up, for the special election. So I went through everything, and we took some photos, and so we developed a card that we ended up sending out to everyone that showed them the steps. And the day of the special election, approximately 11,000 people came in and wrote my name in. We believe that at least 50% or more had that card in their hand, and they took it. And it was an amazing event. That number one, that 11,000 people would come out and write my name in. So I will tell you, you know, sometimes I pass over things, but you know, I grew up on a farm, as Ron said. You know, I graduated from high school. I barely got through high school because I worked on a farm. And I got paid. My mother has a horseback riding school. She's 81 years old. And my parents, my father was 83. Still have 22 or 25 horses. So I got paid to show horses at age 5. Excuse me, at age 8, I got paid $5 a week. And I worked on neighboring farms. So I couldn't wait to get home and go, you know, work on the farm. I graduated from high school. I went to Williamsport Community College to be a diesel mechanic. Stayed there for a year, and I just decided this wasn't for me. So I came out, worked for a relative of mine, an uncle of mine in a construction company. At age 20, then I started my first business, and I've been starting businesses since then. And you know, I also point out to the veterans who are in the room that I graduated from high school in 1973, 1972, the Vietnam War ended. I didn't serve in the military, but at age 20, I started businesses, and for the last almost 40 years, I've been starting businesses, buying businesses, selling businesses, and living the American dream. So honestly, this is a very insignificant way for me to repay my country when I compare what others have done, going overseas and fighting for the freedoms that we enjoy. But the special election was definitely a very, very big deal in our area, and I'm honored and I'm proud to serve. Yesterday I was in the Capitol, and I had 12 school administrators, school finance directors for a meeting, and this is the first time in 21 years, as one of the directors said, the first time in 21 years he's been doing this, that he's ever been invited to the Capitol. We had a conference room, we called out, we had lunch, we met from 10 to 12, did a tour within that time. We sent out for a couple subs and chopped up Jimmy John's subs. But during the tour, when we toured around, I mean, the Capitol is a magnificent building, and this is the first time I really had an in-depth tour like I did yesterday. It was a 45-minute tour with all the school finance people. But it is, for me to be there is an amazing thing. So I'm very honored. I was sworn in on April 2nd. I had 3 elections in 9 months. And in April, a few facts, in April, the Republicans had 27 members in the Senate, and the Democrats had 23. As of the November election, we now have a 30-20 majority, and that's significant. We picked up 3 Republican seats from Western PA, and I was heavily involved in the race for Cameron Bartolotta down in Greene County, Washington County. I met Camera back in late April, early May. She's probably one of the best candidates that I've ever encountered. She's a genuine person, business owner, 50 years old, and a lady in politics. And I love women in politics because women are great at making decisions, and they cut through the baloney, and they're great at solving problems. And I employ a lot of women in my companies. But it was a race that people said you'll never win. And guess what? We won it by 6 points, and she had very little money. I formed a PAC. I put a significant amount of my personal money, and I had a large donor contribute to my PAC. We won, I think it was 5 or 6 points. We picked up a Democrat seat that the Democrats have held since 1946. Okay, it's a big deal. So, and I'll tell you that we were also able to hold on to, we had Ted Erickson retire, and we had Tom Garrett down in the southeast of Delaware County. He was able to keep that seat. It was a very, very nasty race. The unions came out big time. So in September, I had again, back, and sometimes we go a little fast, but in my election, the SRCC came in and spent a lot of money. And Dominic Pledge, of course, spent a lot of money to keep me from winning in the Senate. So, I won, and I will tell you that in a couple of points I have, how we have to get better candidates. These elections are very, very expensive. And I will tell you, because you can connect the dots. But my 3 elections cost $950,000, and they're expensive. And we have a local Republican chairman who's no longer a Republican chairman, a young smart-ass guy who didn't know anything about me, but was willing to pick the party guy. He said, well, an election, Wagner's going to buy the election, it should only cost $70,000. And I don't know what rock he's been living under for the last couple of years, but these elections are expensive. So it's important that if you find a candidate, it's important that all of you get your checkbooks out. And it might be $50 or $100, and if you can afford more, you have to get your checkbooks out, because if you don't, the special interest groups will, and then they will start owning these people. But I had issues from day one with Senator Pileggi. Respected each other, and actually I went out for dinner with him one evening in late April, one-on-one, and we talked about it. I said, what were you thinking that you could come to York and do what you guys did? And I said, what you should have done, they came to York, they actually had private investigators in York for probably 2 months looking for dirt. And, they should have gone to the banks, they should have gone to accounting firms, they should have gone around and asked for references on it. Because I do business, I've been in the waste business for 30 years, I have a lot of municipal contracts, and I'm one of those guys, and I will tell you, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I will do it. I might be a day late doing it, but it will get done, I can assure you that. And I also said, Dominic, I pick up the waste from 85% of the homes in the district. Now, if you can't trust your garbage man, who can you trust? He's still a guy. Doesn't sit on his district. But, so, Pileggi and I had a problem one day on a Wednesday in September in caucus. And I've been pushing him to get paycheck protection to the floor. I've been pushing him for up or down votes, okay? And he keeps saying we don't have enough votes. And, he played a game with me when I got there in April. I went up to see him 2 days after I was sworn in. Senator Pileggi, paycheck protection is very high on my agenda list. He said, Scott, go out to see if you can get round up the votes. Well, my chief of staff and I went around. We believe we had probably 22. But I will tell you, there are members up there at I-6 or 8 that are just outright liars and cowards, and they come from the southeast. So, I played that game, and finally, on a fluke, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. But anyway, one day, Senator Brubaker from Lancaster had a piece of legislation that had to do with the lottery profit formula. And it meant $200 million in profit to the state over a 5-year period. It was $1 billion. He kept jerking Senator Brubaker around, and in caucus I said to Senator Pileggi, why are we not getting this bill to the floor? And there was something else, and we got into somewhat of a debate in caucus with the 27 senators, all 27 of us were there. And we don't do up or down votes, and it sort of snapped at me, and I said, you run this place like a dictator. And I heard a couple senators, Senator Vance and a couple of the other women to my right, they were all, worked up and Senator Pileggi dictator. Well, you know what, I have news for Senator Pileggi. I'm 59, he's 55, and he's an attorney, and you're not going to treat me like this. So I went home that night, and I sent him a writing letter. So I got up the next morning, went to my campaign manager, happens to be in Penn office, and I said, Amanda, I'm going to write you a letter, and it's time to take him out. He said, great. And so, I spent the day and probably 25 drafts. At the end of the day, I showed her the letter. She said, you can't send this out. So we have a 24-hour rule. But anyway, I wrote Senator Pileggi a letter, and he chose to send it out to all other Republican senators. He sent it out to the press. And it was his way of telling me to go jump in the creek. But bottom line is that, and shortly after that, I had been continually asking my chief of staff, how can we get paycheck protection in something and get it to a floor for a vote? So Jason came back, and I called him in the office, Jason came back and said, we need to find a school code bill, and that's the vehicle that we're going to tag this on. So we found the bill that had to do with the EpiPen legislation, and so I introduced an amendment on the floor for paycheck protection and union dues deduction from public school employees. Senator Pileggi had no choice. It had to go to a floor vote. And I knew we were going to lose it. We lost 28 to 20. But what it did do is it flushed out the 6 guys from the southeast that voted no on this. And I'll tell you, they were, and I can tell you that the 20 that voted yes for this, 5 of them were back throwing up in the bathroom before they had to vote. And after it was all over, it might have been Senator Bardwell that said this, and they voted, or maybe it was Senator Smucker. As soon as it was over, and I was standing next to him, and he said, boy, that was pretty painless. And that's how easy it is. But in the real world, if you're on school boards or you're on corporate boards or really anywhere, up or down votes, municipal boards, up or down votes take place every day. So, bottom line is, we've had a leadership, We now have the three new senators. We have a majority 30-20. Senator Pledge got voted out. Senator Corman from Senator County, middle of the state, is now our Senate Majority Leader. And Senator, I have concerns about Senator Corman. He's been there probably 20 years. His father was a senator. But, I'll tell you the theme, and I just picked this up this weekend. I was in Nashville for the weekend, and I was coming back Monday, and I was in the airport, and I saw a magazine, and it was an interesting article, and there was a quote. And I will tell you that I've tried to explain this to people, that I'm in the waste business. I have to. I don't need another career. And I do well in the waste business, and I don't need the money. So I've waived the pension. I do receive the paycheck. After taxes are taken out, my $84,000 salary, I'm level 57. I pay all my own personal expenses. My vehicle, all expenses I pay for. If you come to Harrisburg and you drink coffee or water, I pay for that personally. I do not. Anytime I go out for dinner with anyone, I buy. I don't care. I don't want any questions, and I also make a practice. I don't go out with lobbyists. What do you talk about with lobbyists? I mean, they can come to my office. They can present the case, but I never had over the last 30 years. I didn't have a practice of having dinner with customers, dinner and lunch. But this is the most important thing that I can tell you about me. If you don't owe anybody and you don't want anything, you have the ability to be independent. So I'm very independent, and this scares the crap out of these guys in Harrisburg. Because number one, I have a few bucks. I'm not a super wealthy guy, and I have a lot of debt in my companies, but you know what? When I ran my campaign, I had to finance a lot of my campaign. In the very beginning, and I've, the fundraising went very well. I've taken, I think, 2 PAC checks. I took a realtor's PAC check, and I think I may have taken a Pennsylvania motor truck PAC check because I have a trucking company. But I'm gonna move through this real quickly. But let me just tell you some very quick observations, and take this to the bank and take it from me. Pennsylvania has a spending problem. They don't have a revenue problem because I pay taxes. My trucking company and waste company pump 140,000 gallons of diesel fuel every month. I know the taxes are involved, all the fees we pay. I know the taxes come out of employee paychecks. And you talked about prevailing wage. If we eliminate prevailing wage in the school district, here's the number. I believe, and Governor-elect Wolf is running around over this $2 billion. I believe that if we eliminate prevailing wage just those school districts alone, it would save $500 million. Okay? That's 1/4 of that $2 billion. I have been working on a project since late April, early May. And it was interesting because you had an article back on the table about the PSERS performance. But anyway, there were $71 billion in PSERS and SERS pension funds, $71 billion. The state pays 137 basis points to have that money managed, 1.37%. Take that times 71 billion, it's almost $1 billion would it be in management fees, okay? So if you were to move that $71 billion into Vanguard index funds, if you understand that type of investing, you could potentially save $900 million a year. Now let's say I'm 50% off, that's $500 million. That's another 25% of the $2 billion we're looking for. So, I had to write a letter to the PSERS board. I had a Republican senator on each board, and it took 10 weeks to get a response back, and it's all sugar-coated. But I happened to have dinner with a Democrat senator who was on the board in Philadelphia. I don't know if it's on PSERS or SERS. I said, Larry, when are you going to get me this letter? Because I'm looking for a response. And he goes, I said, we're talking about maybe $900 million in savings. He said, if $900 million goes away in fees, man, all the political contributions will disappear. Well, no kidding. That's I'll tell you, the PSERS, it states here, PSERS investments generate nearly 15% return in 2013-14. Well, I have a 401k that's managed by a trust company that I'm a shareholder in with another, I think it's approximately 80 families. Last year, in 2013, our 401k had a 19.4% return. 15%, cut me a break, or 14%. And also, these people are being paid a lot of money. And if you start digging down and you do a deep dive, the pension funds are heavily invested, more than they should be in private equity investments. And a lot of private equity investments don't come through. But when I say that Pennsylvania is a spending problem and not a revenue problem, I don't know how many of you own businesses in the room, or you own a business, you own a business. Let me tell you this, 440,000 Pennsylvania business owners get up every single day, and I do this in my businesses. We walk around with a putty knife and we scrape pennies off the floor to make money. Because I'm telling you something, making money is very, very difficult. It isn't, some of it's luck, but most of it's hard work. And that's a concept that Harrisburg does not understand. So I'm telling you that we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. And I could go on and on and on, but I will tell you that I know that there's $2 billion. And it's going to be interesting to see if Governor Wolf has sends people over to see, because I do know Katie McKinney. Katie was on the board of a privately held company. John Fry, the president of Drexel University, who was chairing this transition effort. I know John also, he was on the board of the company I was on. But the bottom line is that Governor Wolf's going to run around, he's going to want, he's moving towards tax increases, and I am absolutely adamant about no taxes at all, because you know what? Let's get rid of this, let's get rid of the prevailing wage in schools. Let's see how much of a stomach he has to do this. So, the action items, paycheck protection is still high on the radar screen. We all get sworn in on, I think, January 5th or 6th. And Governor Corbett is still governor until the 20th. So, I'm not at liberty to tell you that we're going to be in the session, but I can tell you something. We have some very rambunctious people right now. So, I think that period, we're keeping low-key because we don't want the Democrats, because they are really squawking right now, that we may do something. But we have session-based schedule, and it's, our memo that came out said that, days may be added or subtracted, so the verbiage is there. Pension reform. Listen, it's real simple. This is how simple it is. This is my message. Let's play make-believe for a minute. Let's play make-believe that you're changing jobs, and on June 30th, you're leaving your old job that has a pension, okay? And when you leave, that you have your pension in place, and it stays there and continues to earn money, and you'll generate, wealth for you. And on July 1st, you're going to start a new job, and the new job has a 401k. Now, how difficult is this? It's not difficult at all. But this tiptoe, this toe dash, hybrid, baloney, it's got to take some backbone to do this. But this is how simple it is. Let's just play make believe and let's get it over with. And so when you retire, you're going to have your pension that you worked for and you earned up to a certain period, and you're going to have a 401k plan over here. I mean, I don't know what the problem is. So that's how easy this is. But we'll see if maybe the make believe story might work, down in Harrisburg. But I've had to use the make believe story. Let's play make believe in my company 2 times in 30 years, and it worked. So that may have to be our strategy. Again, we talk about prevailing wage on school projects, liquor privatization. It's something that needs to be done. But the union influence, Wendell Young's 1776, if there's any talk about liquor privatization, he's got hundreds of people in the hallways down there with their t-shirts on, ranting and raving and yelling and carrying on. So, but the union influence is just tremendous. School tax elimination. Now, when you talk about pension reform, prevailing wage, and school tax, the single largest entity in Harrisburg that is fighting is the PSEA. One of the business managers yesterday told me in the Capitol that the PSEA is their worst nightmare in school districts. And what I've learned, there are 500 school districts. Every school district in the state of Pennsylvania has a different contract. There is no uniformity. So you might be, Ron, in your area, giving your teachers 1.4%. Somewhere they're giving them 2.5%. I don't know how the state can ever manage, there's no uniformity. But the PSEA they are in the crosshairs of my sniper rifle. There are 331, and my issue is not with school teachers. In fact, I think school teachers have been brainwashed and they've been allowed, they believe they've been drinking the Kool-Aid. That's here's the reality. PSEA has 331 employees in the mothership. I think 161 or 162 make over $100,000 a year, and the top 10 make over $200,000 a year. They have way too much influence. They're taking out deductions from 181,000 teachers. It's approximately $130 to $140 million coming out in dues. And I know there's the PAC contributions, there's the fair share. In a school district that I graduated from, on election day or the day before, Tom Wolf flyers were shoved in every teacher's mailbox. They were paid for by the PSEA, they were not paid for by the PAC. These guys are so bold, and I'm telling you, they need to be taken out. And so it's right now this is priority number one for me. And I will tell you that I've put a huge target on my back. I've already been told by the Teamsters they're coming to New York, they're going to be unionized my company. Well, come on, I treat our people well, we get paid well, nice equipment. But at the end of the day, we're gonna work on taking these guys out, and then I'll worry about my personal situation. So, that sort of wraps things up. And I have a few things. I have a website, my campaign website, and you have to be very careful. I can't mix my opinion, some of my personal opinions, and also any campaign activities with Senate activities. So, if you have an interest in getting my emails, I typically send out an email blast. I'm really sending one out probably every 2 weeks from here on out. And it's scottwagnerforsenate.com. Go and sign up. And, I send out stuff like this. I happen to be somewhere and I saw a sign in the hallway of the building. And it says, the most dangerous phrase in the language is, we've always done it this way. I can tell you, I've heard this 100 times since I've been in Harrisburg. And that doesn't work in my world. In fact, if you said this to me, you don't work for me anymore. You work somewhere else because you're fired. So, this is really what we need to do. But, to wrap up, I'm a full supporter of Senate Bill 76. And do I think Senate Bill 76 is perfect? No. But you know what? It's 70 to 75% there. We need to get it passed, and then we need to correct the other 20 to 25% that's not correct. When you talk about Dave Arville up here and other House members and Senate members around the state, you need to hold them accountable. And the other thing I would suggest is if you call someone's office, I love email because I love to put the noose around people's neck. And send your representative, your senator, an email, and sometimes I end up copying people, and I get more people in the chain. And but if you have an issue up here with Dave, and you're not getting a response or something, reach out to my office, and send me a copy of the email. But I'm going to continue to hold these guys accountable. Honestly, it's back to I'm not beholden to any of the lobbyists. I don't take lobbyist money. I'm not owned by these guys. So I tell my constituents, number one, you elected me, and I'm honored, but my pledge to you is I'm not going to become one of those guys. And I've had a couple of people point their finger at me and call me like you guys. And one guy almost strung up down in Lebanon. And I said, I'm not one of those guys because I've been there for 9 months. But I think what has happened over the years, we've been busy in our lives, and we've trusted these people. We continued to elect them. We trusted them. We thought they were doing the right thing. But you know what? They weren't doing the right thing. And a lot of, I'm getting to know a lot of these guys, but I will tell you that in many situations, it's the best job they've ever had, and it's the best job they're ever going to have. So with that, I'll take questions. But I appreciate coming out. I could go on for hours because I'm really, I'm enjoying this job, and I honestly think we're going to get things accomplished. I'm optimistic, but I believe we're going to get things accomplished because we have leadership change in the Senate. You mentioned, I saw it in your. I love this magazine, this newspaper, the Lehigh Valley Commentator. How to skin a politician. This is wonderful. But you guys do this. Senate Majority Leader Dominic Pileggi is the roadblock. And you know what? The roadblock. We found the clog in the sewer line. So.
All right. I know we're going to have questions. The clog in the sewer line. Bam.
Yes, Senator, do you know how much money the state of Pennsylvania spends?
Well, the state operating budget is $30 billion, but that doesn't include PennDOT. They spend, you know what, I'd have to.
70 billion?
Well, you have to look at, number one, there's the operating budget, but then you have PennDOT, you have lottery, you have liquor. If you added all that in, we're a $75 billion operation. And I will tell you, in 9 months, you know, I got the budget book, and I spent a lot of time. I don't believe right now there is we have the budget gap right now, this $2 billion budget gap. And it's somewhat artificial, because in my business, I have everybody that has a business traditionally would have an operating line of credit, because for example, the first quarter of the year is our best year at my waste company, and at my trucking company, it's our worst quarter. But in the state of Pennsylvania, the first 4 months are the highest revenue months for the state of Pennsylvania, because you have personal income tax coming in and other taxes. So for right now, for the state to be borrowing $2 billion from the Treasury it's not out of line to me, because if I was operating a $30 billion business and you divide 30 by 12, that's $2.5 billion a month. You would need a 60-day. You would need a line of credit equal to 60 days of revenue, which is $5 billion. So it's not unreasonable. But I will tell you that the problem is, the big problem is this pension. If you see the pension numbers, how they ramp up, yeah, we're reaching a point where whatever, however you want to do it, they're going to cross so quickly. But the pension numbers are just daunting right now. So I think we're probably, the state is a zero balance budget. But I think, we're not, we're close, we're spending a little bit more than we take in, but it's going to get worse if we don't do something. Like, for example, prevailing wage, if you eliminate $500 billion is a lot of money. And that may make up, half of that gap for a 2 or 3 year period. There's going to be some pain with pensions for probably about 5 to 7 years till we get over this hump.
Thanks. Jim?
Hopefully I answered your question.
Thank you for all that you do. Would you be willing to take on the Farm Bureau on Sunday hunting? Something dear to my heart. I have a simple 5-point plan I'd be willing to talk to you about.
I don't know enough, and there's one thing I'm going to confess, in what I'm doing. I don't know enough. I'm focused on certain things. If you reached out to my office and got more educated, we could include, either Senator Argo or Senator Palmer in this mix and understand it. I would have an interest in looking at it.
Some of us here tonight are from Chester County, so we have intimate experience with Pileggi and some of the liars that you talked about down there. Even though he's out as the majority leader, he still has a pretty powerful base in the Senate. How do you see, where do you see him going, and how can you overcome that?
Well, I see it a little differently. This guy came up from New York and with, and basically, took the wind out of his sails. I think he's number 6 in seniority. He is not, he's going to sit back where I sit, and he may chair a committee or two, but I think he's lost his influence. This guy has got a huge ego, and I tell you something, we took a certain part of his body away from him. For the guy is, listen, I don't know what happens in Harrisburg. If you've got an ego, you go to Harrisburg. And I will tell you, and I don't know, are there any attorneys here? But attorneys have egos. Most attorneys I know have egos. And he just has, there was an article in the Philadelphia Magazine a couple of months ago. It was a picture of him standing outside his home in his briefcase. It was to me the perfect shot. And I think they were there before the sun came up with the photographers, and the sun came up, and everything was perfect. I believe that there's a potential that he may run for a Supreme Court spot. But as far as, I think he's going to have a tough time. But I will tell you that he's a wounded guy.
You think he's vulnerable in his position?
Yes, absolutely. If you get, listen, I've gotten emails from your district, and people tell me that I'm their senator, not Pledge. And I can tell you something, if you get the right candidate, you can knock him off. And I'll be happy to help.
I got a comment and a question. It sounds like you're on board with the pension reform. You talked about the Vanguard S&P 500 or index fund investment and the money that can be made there versus the high-risk investments that the PSCRS is currently involved in. That's what the municipal retirement system is doing. The municipal pension funds are investing in index funds heavily. And they're making money to the tune of about 142% over the period from 2007 until 2012, where during that same time frame, the PSCRS lost $24 billion. I think there's more than just stupidity and waste and bad investment going on here. I think there's possibly some corruption going on in this, because there's one man that's on the board of PSCRS and of the municipal retirement system. And that would be Senator Rob McCord. That has been pointed out in the last meeting here and the meeting at SEPTA. My question is, have you met Mr. Representative Tom Caltagirone yet?
Have not.
You should. And the man to his left. You need to talk to those two gentlemen.
I read some of the literature back here. I think, number one, it's when you talk about $1 billion in management fees that are being paid, guaranteed there's corruption. Okay? And guaranteed there's money floating to people where it shouldn't be floating. And the political contributions, again, what the PSEA is doing, and I'm sure the bankers and investment people are doing, it's a place that is ripe for corruption. So it is what it is. I had a thought, I'll think of it in a second.
Last question, Rich.
Yes, sir. First, I want to thank you for coming. And I don't know if you have this report. This is from September 26, 2006. Jack Wagner did an audit of all the pensions. And he gave 33 recommendations to not have a pension crisis. He said if they didn't make the changes, there will be a crisis. They allowed this crisis to happen. And from my analysis, and working with Tom Cotter here over the last 9 months, we can pretty much document where the trustees and the PSCRS has cost us somewhere in the vicinity of $50 billion loss. Is there a way that the legislators can hold the trustees and the investment bankers responsible for this because they did not do their fiduciary responsibility?
I'm going to give you an honest answer. No, because they don't have the backbone to do it. I mean, unfortunately, that report's 8 years old, and I think I have to look at today. But I have requested through Senator Scarnati to be appointed to either the PSERS. I want to go to the largest board that has the largest amount of money. And you start asking questions. When it took the PSERS and SERS 10 weeks to respond to our questions. And I used an outside resource, and we had some sophisticated questions, and we also asked 5 conflict of interest questions, and it was pretty interesting how we danced around. But all I will tell you is that in this, go back to this report, it's too old and it predates me. So I'm looking forward, and I'm going to sit down and look at performances and start asking a lot of questions. And you know what? We're going to stir the pot.
Senator.
But I will just tell you one thing. This is what I thought. Pick up the Wall Street Journal on Friday. Go back to the there's 4 sections. There's the A, B, and C section, and then go back to the real estate section. You will read about money managers that live in New York, and one may have bought a $48 million home in the Hamptons. Okay, well that's great. I respect him. He's doing pretty well. But that's not who I represent. I represent the people of my district and the people of Pennsylvania. And I think it's great, people are buying $40 to $50 million homes in the Hamptons. But that's not who I represent.
If you and I could team up, Eugene DePasquale, the Auditor General, agrees with what Richard and I have uncovered about what's been going on with the two pension funds. It's absolutely outrageous. I'd like to get the Attorney General and the Auditor General to really put them through the screen, because I think we're talking about billions of dollars of abuses that have taken place over umpteen years. And sad to say, Democrats and Republicans, governors of both parties, leaderships of both parties, have blood on their hands when it comes to this mess, and they continue to make the same mistakes. Gene told them not to dump another $100 million into the hedge funds just recently, and they had dumped over $1 billion, and they went right ahead and pumped in another $100 million, even though he told them, you shouldn't do it, you're going to lose money. I mean, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. We've uncovered a lot that we'd like to share with you so that we could bring you up to speed, because this pension issue, it wasn't created, first of all, the school boards and the governors, they weren't putting money in for numerous years. They kept chinching. But I'd like to get together with you at some
I'll give you
point.
my card, and I
Thank you.
extend an offer for you to come to Harrisburg, and come and spend some time with me. It's the issue. Listen, I'm going to be candid with you. And your question about spending. I'm not a polished politician. I'm a business guy. I know that 2 + 2 = 4, and I know where there's a rat. I know where there's a rat in the woodpile. There's a rat in the woodpile, and there are a lot of woodpiles in Harrisburg. And I'm one guy. And we're going to, I will tell you that if you ask around, ask in the political circles, people are a little scared of me right now and apprehensive. I'm trying to gain their respect. I'm trying to explain, this is what I want to know. And but I'm only going to ask one time. If I have to ask a second time, you're going to see my neck is going to be better, and I don't ask a third time. And you don't. I have the resources, and I now have the support of a lot of people. That I'm going to ask questions. I'm not going away. And I may be perceived as a little bit of a wild man, but I think that's what 11,000 people voted for in my district. So come to Harrisburg, and we'll try to connect the dots. But I'm being honest and candid with you. If I don't know something, I'll tell you.
I think you got a few more supporters tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Scott Wagner. I have one question. It's refreshing to hear that you're not owned by anybody. It's refreshing to hear all the controversy you're willing to stir up for liberty. How can we support folks like you? I'm a teacher. I'm anti-union, so I know how you feel when you go into Congress. I go into school every day. Last year, I got on the board of negotiators. I introduced myself to the PSE lady and said, I hate the PSEA. She said, wow, nice to know you too. What was your name? I said, I'm Mike, I'm sorry. And I said, the reason I hate them is because what they do with my money. So I'm with you on that, and I get very little support, and I know you got very little support internally. What can we do to help you?
I think number one, I'm going to suggest that you, please come and sign up on my website. And we're going to, I'm also involved heavily with Citizens Alliance, Pennsylvania CAP, and CAP has funded a lot of races, and number one, you're here tonight. That's what this is all about. You're here, and I think there's social media, whether it's Facebook, whether it's it's email. Get involved and start understanding what's going on out there. But connect with me, and you'll see some of the efforts that we have going on. Now, something else you're going to find a little surprising, that I have an interest in running the SRCC, because they need to clean their act up. I mean, big time. So, I will also tell you that this year, in this election cycle, the SRCC and a handful of senators spent $8 million on campaigns. I could have done them for $5 to $5.5 million. Because I look at what we spend on mailing cards and what they're spending on cards. I mean, I spend 42 cents or 43 cents. They're spending 79. Because the political consultants in Harrisburg are making serious money. I got to tell you the tragedy that I think about this. I just want to go to the bathroom and throw up. the Tom Smith that ran for the US Senate, he put in 17 million of his own money. I know for a fact the guys who ran his campaign walked away, pocketed 20% of that 17 million. They got rich off of that. And because they're placing advertising media, I mean, advertising agencies make a ton of money placing media. So I just think, you know, continue to be engaged, sign up on my website, and you know, I formed a PAC. If you go into Politics PA, we had to do this fast in July, but I formed a PAC called Reform PA PAC. And you know, our number one candidate was Cameron Bartolome. We made a contribution to Pat Stefano and Michelle Brooks. But Reform PA is a PAC that we're going to continue. We're going to focus on the next cycle. We have, in 2 years, we have a fair number of senators coming up, and we're focused on 4 more races. If we can pick up 34 Republican seats, we have veto power over the governor. Just think about that. So that's one of my goals.
All right, Scott Wagner, ladies and gentlemen.
Whose brain? Abby someone. Abby someone. Abby who? Abby normal.